that will leave you questioning what you really know about the people you see online. We all spend hours scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We follow creators, laugh at their jokes, admire their dances, and maybe even feel inspired by their lives. But here's the haunting question. Are these influencers really who they claim to be? Are they as pure and innocent as they appear on screen? Or are some of them hiding shadows darker than we could ever imagine? Today's case pulls back that curtain. It's about a popular content creator whose choices would lead to the mysterious disappearance and eventual death of someone very close. Our story begins in Bhiwani, a district in India's Haryana state, a place well known for its farming and dairy industries. In a modest home, 35-year-old Praveen Yadav lived with his wife Raveena Rao, aged 32, and their 6-year-old son, Mukul. Their love story had started years earlier. In 2015, Raveena first met Praveen, and almost instantly, sparks flew. The two quickly became inseparable, sharing long conversations and endless dreams until marriage became the only natural step forward. When Praveen finally told his father, Subhash Yadav, about his decision to marry Raveena, the elder Yadav wasn't thrilled. He felt uncertain about the match. But Praveen stood firm, and eventually Subhash agreed. By 2017, the couple tied the knot with full Hindu rituals. 2 years later, their son Mukul was born, completing their family. From the outside, it looked like a storybook marriage. But inside the home, cracks were beginning to show. The root of their disputes? Social media. Raveena was only a high school graduate, but she was modern, ambitious, and hungry for recognition. While at first she began making reels just to pass time when her husband and father-in-law were away at work, soon her videos gained attention. Her lip syncs, dance clips, and skits started pulling in views. Encouraged, she also joined a YouTube channel that produced short films and dramas. Her husband Praveen, meanwhile, was a hard-working driver, earning a living by transporting construction materials like sand, cement, and soil. He often traveled outside the city for work. His father, Subhash, was a caterer, known for taking contracts at weddings. The family wasn't rich, but they were stable. But with Raveena's growing interest in social media, tension in the home grew sharper. Praveen began to worry as Raveena's content became bolder and she spent more time outside the house. Raveena, on the other hand, began dreaming bigger. She imagined fame, money, and perhaps even escaping the limitations of her ordinary life. By early 2025, she was convinced that social media was her true path forward. She was busier than ever with shoots, collaborations, and content creation. Then came March 26, 2025, the day everything changed. That night, Raveena claimed she had woken around 3 a.m. to see her husband Praveen sitting on the staircase, smoking a cigarette. She asked him why he was awake so late and told him to return to bed. He followed her back into the room, and she assumed all was normal. But when morning came, Praveen was gone. His bed was empty, his phone unreachable. At first, Raveena thought little of it. After all, Praveen's job often required early mornings and long trips. His father, Subhash, also brushed off the concern, believing his son must have gone for work. But as hours passed with no sign of Praveen, worry began to spread. Raveena went about her day, dropping Mukul off at school and later heading out for a video shoot. Yet when she returned home, her father-in-law's worried face told her something was wrong. Praveen had still not returned. Calls to his phone went unanswered. Relatives and coworkers had no information. 2 full days passed. No word from Praveen. No trace of where he had gone. And soon, what started as a missing person case would spiral into something far darker. In the early hours of March 28, 2025, the local police station received a disturbing call from an unknown number. The caller claimed that he had spotted a dead body lying in a drainage canal and that the condition of the corpse was horrifying. Officers immediately rushed to the location described. What they found was grim. A man's body, badly decomposed and swollen after spending days in the water, floated in the filthy drain. At first glance, investigators guessed the victim to be in his early 30s, but identifying him was nearly impossible due to the state of the remains. When forensic experts examined the corpse, they noticed something that stood out: a tattoo etched on the victim's hand. This small detail became the first real lead in uncovering his identity. The body was transferred to the hospital for further examination, and within hours, news of the discovery spread across local newspapers and television. On March 29th, Praveen Yadav's father, Subhash Yadav, read the report. A deep unease grew inside him as he recognized the description of the clothing. The tattoo detail shook him even more. His son Praveen also had his name tattooed on his hand. Terrified but needing answers, Subhash, along with other family members, went to the hospital. Their worst fears came true. By the clothes and the tattoo, they confirmed that the body was indeed Praveen Yadav. Once the identification was made, police began the official post-mortem with the family's consent. Meanwhile, Subhash broke the devastating news to his relatives and to Raveena, Praveen's wife. With her young son in her arms, Raveena wept uncontrollably. In an instant, she had lost her husband, and Mukul had lost his father. But the real shock came when the autopsy results were released. Doctors could not determine a clear cause of death. There were no obvious signs pointing to whether Praveen had been murdered or if his death was the result of an accident. Still, police learned something unexpected during their inquiries. Praveen had reportedly been drinking heavily in recent weeks. This led some to speculate that he might have fallen into the drain while intoxicated and drowned, making his death appear accidental rather than deliberate. With no firm evidence to the contrary, many accepted this explanation. Praveen's funeral was held soon after. The grief was overwhelming. Raveena cried so hard that she nearly collapsed during the cremation rituals. Although most of the community believed the tragedy to be accidental, Raveena's father voiced a different opinion. He urged Subhash to demand a deeper investigation, fearing that something darker was at play. Following this request, the police revisited the case. But even after nearly 2 weeks, no clear leads emerged. That's when Praveen's younger brother and cousin decided to conduct their own inquiry. They knew Praveen well and insisted he was never so reckless with alcohol that it would cost him his life. They began gathering CCTV footage from the neighborhood, focusing on the night of March 25th into March 26th. Reviewing the clips, they saw Praveen clearly arriving home around 8:30 p.m. on the 25th. Yet in all the hours that followed, not once was he seen leaving the house. This raised serious doubts about Raveena's statement, that she had seen him smoking on the staircase and then leaving later. Then, at 11 p.m., something caught their eye. A motorcycle appeared near the Yadav residence. Its rider, wearing a helmet, circled the house several times before leaving. Later, just before 1 a.m. on March 26th, the same motorbike returned to the same spot. For Praveen's family, this was no coincidence. It was a sign that someone had been watching the house that night. As Praveen's relatives continued to dig deeper, they reviewed more CCTV footage from different angles in the neighborhood. On at least 3 or 4 separate cameras, the same motorcycle appeared. But this time, things looked even more suspicious. 2 additional passengers could be seen on the bike. One seated in the middle, seemingly slumped, and another at the back, her face carefully hidden with a scarf. The driver wore a helmet the entire time, making it nearly impossible to identify him. On April 11th, the family took all this evidence straight to the police. Alongside the footage, Praveen's father voiced his darkest suspicion. He believed the veiled woman on the back of the bike was Raveena, and the limp figure sandwiched between them was none other than Praveen himself. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. Detectives, who until then had leaned toward the theory of an accident, immediately shifted their focus. Raveena was now at the center of suspicion. Investigators moved quickly to examine her call records and location data, hoping to verify the claims. What they found only fueled their doubts. The digital trail placed Raveena in questionable locations during crucial hours, and her call history showed repeated contact with one particular man. The evidence tightened around her. When police finally brought Raveena in for questioning, they decided to take a tougher stance. Sitting across from her in the interrogation room, an officer slammed the case file on the table and said firmly, "Enough lies. Tell us what really happened." Under pressure, Raveena's composure cracked. After hours of grilling, she broke down and confessed, admitting that she had played a role in her husband's death. Shocked officers leaned in as she revealed there was another man involved, someone who had been calling her constantly. His name was Suresh. Raveena confessed that after her marriage, she had grown close to Suresh through social media. Their connection wasn't accidental. When Raveena's Instagram reels began attracting attention, she realized there was potential to make serious money, but she lacked the knowledge to expand her reach. YouTube seemed like the next big step, but she didn't know how to break into it. That's when she stumbled upon Suresh online. He wasn't a stranger. He lived only a few neighborhoods away. More importantly, he was already an established YouTuber, producing content that regularly pulled in thousands of views. His growing popularity fascinated Raveena. Hoping to learn from him, she reached out. At first, their conversations revolve around content strategy, what videos to make, how to boost engagement, and how to build her own channel. Suresh flattered her constantly, telling her she had natural talent and charisma, insisting she could easily become famous with the right guidance. Raveena, desperate for validation and independence, hung on to his every word. Soon, Suresh offered to help her directly. He suggested featuring her in his own videos to give her exposure, claiming it would accelerate her growth. Raveena agreed, and before long, he was not just advising her. He was filming her, directing her, and spending more and more time with her. This professional partnership quickly blurred into something far more personal. Their bond grew stronger, their meetings more frequent, until eventually, Raveena and Suresh became entangled in an illicit affair. But there was one major problem: Praveen. When Praveen discovered that his wife had been dancing and acting in videos online, he was furious. It wasn't just about her posting reels. His own friends had started mocking him, whispering behind his back about his wife's modern lifestyle. For a man who valued his reputation, it was unbearable. What began as arguments over her social media slowly escalated into bitter fights, widening the rift in their marriage. And in the shadows, Suresh's influence over Raveena grew stronger. For the first time in their marriage, Praveen finally demanded that Raveena stop making videos. But by then it was too late. She no longer cared for his authority. In her mind, Praveen had lost all value. With Suresh by her side, a man who praised her, guided her on YouTube, and made her feel important, she believed she had found someone who truly respected her. Praveen, realizing that his wife neither loved nor respected him anymore, sank into despair. The once hard-working driver began drinking heavily, numbing himself every night. Meanwhile, Raveena's betrayal only deepened. Each time Praveen left the house for work, she would secretly call Suresh over. Their relationship had crossed every boundary: emotional, physical, and moral. Then came March 25th, 2025, the day everything unraveled. That morning, Praveen left for his usual job. Believing the coast was clear, Raveena once again invited Suresh to the house, and the two spent hours together. But fate struck unexpectedly. By noon, Praveen returned home earlier than usual without informing anyone. When his furious knocks echoed through the door, Raveena panicked. She knew she was caught. Hesitating for a moment, she finally opened the door, and there stood Praveen, face red with rage, as his eyes immediately fell on Suresh inside. Without a single word, Praveen launched at him, fists flying. A violent scuffle broke out. Praveen struck Suresh repeatedly, driven by the humiliation of betrayal. Raveena tried to intervene, but Praveen was beyond reason. In a desperate attempt to save her lover, Raveena rushed into another room, grabbed a scarf, and looped it around her husband's neck from behind. Praveen fought with all his strength. He tried to free himself, but Suresh held his arms down tightly, while Raveena pulled the scarf tighter and tighter. Within minutes, Praveen's resistance weakened. His eyes widened, his body trembled, and soon he collapsed. Some accounts later claimed that, shockingly, even after Praveen's death, Raveena and Suresh continued their physical intimacy near his lifeless body, proof of how far gone they were in their obsession. But once the haze of passion wore off, a terrifying reality set in. They had just committed murder. Panic consumed them. What could they do with the body? How would they hide their crime? At first, they considered several ideas, but none seemed safe. Finally, they decided to dispose of the body in the dirty drain near the house. That evening, Suresh left quickly to avoid suspicion. But in the early hours of March 26th, around 1:30 a.m., Raveena called him back. Together, under the cover of darkness, they dragged Praveen's lifeless body from the first floor, wrapped it, and carefully loaded it onto Suresh's bike. The night was silent except for the muffled sound of the motorcycle's engine as it carried its grim cargo. When they reached the drain, they dumped the body, weighing it down with a stone to ensure it sank. Then they returned home, as though nothing had happened. For days, Raveena kept up the facade, crying in front of her in-laws, searching for her missing husband, and even filing a police complaint. To outsiders, she looked like a grieving wife. To her son, she was still just mother. But the truth was far darker. When the police finally pieced the story together, and Raveena confessed during interrogation, the entire community was left stunned. How could a wife so coldly betray and murder her husband? And all for a lover she had met through social media? The betrayal was compounded by the fact that Raveena never once thought about her young son, who had now lost his father forever. Instead, she risked everything, her family, her reputation, her freedom, for a man who fueled her ambitions. Today, the case remains in court. A charge sheet has been filed against both Raveena and Suresh, backed by digital, forensic, and physical evidence, including the bike used to carry Praveen's body. This case shocked not only the village, but also the entire state, becoming a chilling reminder of how love, obsession, and greed can spiral into tragedy.